Welcome back to Holts. Today we're going to be checking out the July 2025 sale. Simon's going to be joining us as always, and we have picked over a dozen guns to look at. We think we've picked the best guns here, but as always, I'll see you in the comments. Tell me your favourite when we get to it. Let's rock and roll. We're going to open up with lot 1691, a gun I don't think we've ever had on the channel. This is a Desenzani of Brescia, an over and under sidelock shotgun built in 1989. So this gun is 18 to 22,000 estimate, which is quite a lot of money, but Desenzani is a high-end boutique maker. They never made tons of guns, and ergo, that means they're rare. More importantly, they are a boutique maker, meaning there are just not that many, and because their ability to make is low. Think about it somewhere along the lines of Piotti, or maybe like a even lower production Abbiatico and Salvanelli. Their focus is on beautiful guns, and I think you'll agree that this one is pretty beautiful. And we're going to go through what we've got here. The real star of the show is this engraving. The engraving is done by Paravicini, and if you want to talk about insanely good quality Ullino style, this is it. But before we get into that engraving and having a good look over, let's start at the front, shall we? Because, well, I want to. It's got 70 centimeter or 27.5 inch chopper lump barrels, meaning that these are not made with a monoblock. These are two tubes sleeved together with the blocks intact and all milled and joined as two pieces. It's definitely reserved for higher grade guns. It's said to produce a better quality barrel because the better balanced barrel because you don't have a large monoblock to take the tubes, which means you can slim everything down. It makes for a more refined affair. It's got these two fins on the side of the barrel here. They are for the fore end, and so when the fore end clips on, you have continuous metal that runs from the fore end into the side ribs. There's no gaps, no nothing. Again, just a little touch of class. The barrel is signed Desenzani A and C, that's Sia Brescia. You have solid midrib and a vented tapered top rib that is hand filed. Just signs of class throughout with these barrels. AU stamped on the bottom with GM Busago stamped on the barrels. AU is 1989 date stamp. It's not seal proofed, but that's okay. In the front we have quarter and full choke with a little nickel bead sight in the front. Really cool set of barrels. You know, if you talk about fine gun making, this is everything you want. Drop lump, side ribs, tapered top rib with hand checkering. Next, we move on to the fore end. And this is where we start to get a bit saucy. On the front of the fore end, you've got a Bracco Italiano on a cruciform fore end tip with a pushrod fore end. Engraved screws on the inside just to be saucy, and the whole thing is nice with the Desenzani coat of arms inlaid on the front there, and you'll see stuff like that on Bosis guns. You can sometimes see it on Abbiatico guns. It's a real sign of quality when they put their thing right there. It takes a load of work to put it in. It's nice, it's a nice touch, and if you owned a Desenzani, you should be proud enough to have Desenzani on there, I think. The engraving of the Bracco on that cruciform is gorgeous. Desenzani is a bit of a lesser known maker, right? Not many people have heard of them, and so that their values can go up and down. The value of 18 to 22 is about right. The last one I saw went for just over 30. They've been around a while. You can find some old girls from the 70s for about 7 to 8, and the quality varies, right? The thing with a boutique house is they're rarely making anything the same. The only things that might let it down is that it's not modern spec, but for a gentleman's game gun / collector's piece, this is where it needs to be. The final touch on the barrels, by the way, is the rib has a slight extension that clips in the top of the action. Again, just nice little touches that just make that metal flow into each other. And this could be considered an art gun, museum level engraving. There's all sorts of words that people would use for a gun that looks this good, but I look at it and go, It'd be nice to take this out in the field, wouldn't it? I think. The engraving is where it's at, really, and this action is a full side lock over and under action. We've got Bellino pointers chasing chukka out of the mountains. However close you get, however tight you get to looking at it, it doesn't stop being perfect. This is extremely good Bellino work, and that period in time is where we start to see the, well, we see some amazing quality work. You see amazing Bellino before that and after, but yeah, whenever you see a true master Italian engraver have plenty of time to do their work, I love that. I really do. It sort of comes alive. The trees look like trees. The dogs look like dogs. You can see their muscles. You can see them moving. On the other side, you've got it looks like a long hair, a setter chasing pheasants. And on the bottom, you just have rose and scroll with bouquets of roses in fine, tight scroll. This is a classy gun. This is a proper hunter's gun as well, right? Straight hand stock, lightweight, fast barrels. If you're shooting over pointers, which clearly this gun was designed to do, seeing as it's adorned with all manner of pointing dogs with the Bracco, the English pointer, and the setter, I can't imagine much of a better stick for doing it with. Single trigger, straight hand stock, and there is a slight crack at the hand of the stock, according to the listing. I'm struggling to see. If it is just that tiny piece there, then it's not quite the end of the world. I wouldn't stress too much about it. Usually when there's a slight crack at hand, the thing's falling apart, or can be. This one is in pretty tight order. The wood is beautiful quality and beautifully finished, and you have a hard, is it ebony or horn heel plate? That stock is 14 3/4 inches with a 5/8 pad. It could be longer from a personal perspective, but that's going to fit most people for the task at hand. For shooting over pointing dogs, you don't want a super long stock. You want something a bit tighter, a bit easier to just point and get on with. I really like this. The shape of the top lever, the shape of the safety catch, the shape of the safety tang with that step in at the back. This is fine gun making. This is Italians doing what they do best, which is, well, I say that they do gun making pretty well in that part of the world. I think we've established. But they're proper boutique makers. They've got a few, and we've seen a few in Holts. Oh, they just knock it out of the park. They really do. Yeah, it doesn't take much to make me fall in love with a gun, and this has way more than not much. There's Cinzani. Cool, innit? Our first pick for a walk-around look is this, lot 1505. It's a real interesting little gun. It really should not exist. It is a J. Bradell and Sons of Belfast. That name dates back to 1811. It's a gun maker that I have never seen before, but just looking at it, this is an odd thing. It's a 20 bore. It's side-plated box lock non-ejector Damascus barrels with a pistol grip, dated to 1885. The J. Bradell brand started in 1811. By 1825 became J. Bradell and Sons, and by the 1880s they kind of transitioned from retail into more of an import than manufacture. They had the Ulster Bulldog revolver that they made. There's an awful lot of stuff to find about them on the internet. A lot of it is extremely interesting. You know, didn't just make guns, there's all manner of stuff bearing their name, and a lot of their guns towards the latter end were made a bit by them, but also by the Birmingham trade. So all round cool story, which I think a lot of it, when it comes to older guns, is part of it, right? Having a name on a gun, for many of us, is cool, a known name, but some of these lesser known names have equally an interesting story, and this is one of those. So the specs of this thing. It's got Damascus barrels that are 28 inches, made in 1885, as we said, but reproved for nitro in 1991, so it's safe for modern loads. It's got a 14 3/4 inch stock, which is made of nicely figured walnut with a small extension piece on the back to change the pitch and the length slightly. You know what? Let's go and sit down and have a look over this bad boy. It is, I think, spectacular. The next interesting point is that it's got a single trigger, Lancaster's 1883 patent single trigger, so that's a really nice thing. The pistol grip is pretty bizarre for a 20 bore as well, but whoever ordered this clearly knew what they wanted, you know. This feels much more like a gun from 40 years later, to be honest. The side plates are a nice addition, just an extra canvas for the artist engraver to work upon, and I love how the wood scallops up and then rounds down to have a perfect wood to metal fit, but just adding extra contour, the way it catches the light and sort of moves through the gun. Everything here is lovely. We've got folds at the back here, beautiful coarse checkering. Even the shape of the stock is, well, maybe even a little, it's just different, right? I can't help but kind of love all the individual features, and I think they come together really well. We've got a Wesley Richards patent top lever and a brass pressed in safe plate in the back there. Safety catch is nice and long and positive. Top lever is getting a little loose, but you know, this gun's 140 years old. I think it's allowed to cut it some slack. Just picking it up and playing with it, it feels like a gun designed for shooting. You've got a scalloped, slightly raised rib with no checkering, a bead sight in the front. This feels like the sort of gun that you could shoot in the modern world. And if you were going to spec a 20 bore now, it probably wouldn't be a million miles away from this. And I think it's kind of fascinating that, well, all fashions come around, don't they? But in this case, this one is prime real estate. The downside, it's a non-ejector, but I don't think that's the end of the world for many of us, really. Certainly for what you dream about taking this gun to do, which would be a bit of walked up game, a bit of hedgerow bashing, a bit of rough shooting, or even just for small driven days. You know, good average pheasants this would be very capable of. Lovely that it's reproved, just ready for the next generation's worth of enjoyment. There is a little bit of a caution to be taken with a single trigger. Older single trigger systems are often slightly less reliable, or more importantly, if it's been worked on somebody who is not qualified to do so, which is very, very few people for something like this, there is a caution to be had. But there are people who can still work on it, and one would, fingers crossed, that it does work. I love the long trigger tang into the horn grip cap. That's a really nice touch for a box lock non-ejector. And then moving forward, we have really lovely pointed forend. Like the line of that forend is super sleek and almost a little bit more muzzle loadery in the way that it all comes together. The estimate sits at 600 to 800, not a crazy sort of level for what we've got here as a collective. It's, well, one of a kind for sure, but the maker is quite rare. Well, is there people who are into Irish gun-making history? I know there's a huge proponent and collectible society with the Scottish gun-making trade. This is a whole nother level of interest. A proper nice gun, real different. Another auction, Simon.
It is. We're here again. It comes around quicker every time. I think that might be something to do with age.
Yeah, I'd go with that. It's also just been a pretty hectic year, right?
It has, yeah. Diary is always full.
Yeah, the world's been kicking off, so actually the news has been interesting. It's been an engaging year. So let's take a break from all of the misery of life.
Back to guns.
Back to guns. What is it?
This is an unusual one. This is a little insight for me into how the auction cycle works. So all four of us in the gun room walked past this. It's fairly innocuous looking side lock. Picked it up and went, oh, that's really nice. That's really nice. Actually, it's a really, really well-made gun, and it's not shouty. It's got very few frills, but everything that's done here is done particularly well. And because of that, Chris said, that's why I'm going to put it in the live auction, because it's probably the least valuable gun in here. But the reason I picked it out is several-fold. A, because it's good value. B, because it's exceptionally well-made.
Lot 1409 is how much money?
£300 to £500.
Okay, that's not a lot of money for a side lock side by side in what appears on the face of it to be very good order.
It is, yeah.
Sorry for it.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
So this is a Belgian 1920s side lock non-ejector of really fine quality, made by people who cared about what they did.
I mean, Belgium, one of the great gun-making countries of the world.
Absolutely.
1920, a time that was actually at its peak. I mean, probably a little bit of restoration going on in the country, but for the most part, those people have been going back to work. The skill would have still been there.
Yeah.
And yeah, right, it's a pretty no frills, tapered, scalloped, raised rib.
Yes, machine filed is how we've catalogued it, because there were machines in Belgium that were designed to just cut this rib as it is.
It's nice.
You've got oak leaves on the fences here, which are beautifully done. You've got original colour still, and just the proportions.
I was going to say, it's
good.
the shaping that does it right.
And this, I think,
not
is
clumsy looking.
No, this is what it comes down to for us, is all four of us walked past it, and all four of us made a beeline for it and picked it up, because there are subtle things. The brain, when you do something a lot, like look at guns, decide on what's good, what's not, cataloguing guns, decide what has problems, what doesn't, your brain gets tuned to the subtle differences. And when you find a particularly nicely proportioned gun, you automatically go into it, get zeroed in on that gun. And this is what I think happened in this case, which is why a relatively inexpensive gun has found its way into this room. It's because it just has that mark of quality all the way through.
Nameless?
Nameless, exactly. Yeah, nobody has put their name on it as part of the making process, so we can't attribute it, but it's Belgian proof marked. It's got 26 and 3/4 inch barrel, so it's got a continental metric barrel measurement, but we always describe in the UK our barrel lengths as inches. Half and full choke, and a hidden third bite, and non-auto safety, and manual safety. But I read an article recently by Bob Williams in Covey Rise magazine, which described the demise, or the fact that upland hunters in America routinely ignore 12 bores and go for the smaller gauges. This is one classic example of a gun that would be a really great woodcock gun in tight cover, in the thick woods, shortish barrels, non-ejector, so you don't have to pick off the ground.
Shade under £7.
Shade under £7, lightweight, good to carry all day. I picked it out because it's good quality for not very much money that suits a particular style of shooting that we are both fond of.
I love the checkering on it as well. It's very clean. It's coarse, but it's really nice quality.
Yeah.
All in all, just a nice thing.
It is.
Why do you think the manual safety?
Good question. It's
even still in
locks up beautifully.
That's a really finely made
just
thing.
Good quality. And yes, it's got hole for the sling swivel in the stock, and you've got the sling swivel screws in the bottom rib there. So
you could have that was the thing that covered with an oval.
Exactly. The Continental shooters did go for sling swivels, but just a good thing, good quality thing that we all zeroed in on, and because of that, we put it in the main auction.
Yeah, that would get lost in a sealed bid, and it is too nice for sealed bid.
It is. It's too good quality.
Again, it's always a difficulty, right? When there's no name on it, there's no basis for value.
Yeah.
And the fact it's Belgian is going to be sort of slurred by some of the cheaper Belgian junk that we've seen over the years. But one sometimes forgets that it is one of the great gun-making nations of the world, with some of the best gun makers now even still. The B-25 is no joke. LeBeau Corelli is no joke. They're making incredible guns.
Yeah.
Incredible guns. And back then they were making incredible guns.
Yeah, this is a classic case of don't ignore it because where it's from.
No, and they more than most countries have like a garage gun culture, right? There is more garage B-25s out there than real ones.
Yeah.
Probably not, but it's in that kind of metric, right? There is a culture of taking your work home with you and making guns to high quality without putting your name on. I really think it's solid, right? You put a maker's name on there and that's worth money.
Yes, I agree.
So I guess it just boils down to how much you value a name.
Name over quality. Don't look for the name necessarily, look for the quality.
I mean, if you spent £1,500 on it, you wouldn't be unhappy.
No, you wouldn't. Yeah, it's just good all-round gun.
Except it's not a 28 gauge, so...
Well...
There go less cool, mate. This is it. You can't boast to your friends about your 2.5 inch 12 bore, can you?
If you want to boast about, your small barrel, then you can.
There we go. Simon guilting men into 12 bores, one gun at a time. It's nice. It's even semi-sensibly stocked, right?
Yeah.
Semi-sensibly stocked. This is lot 1652, a Perazzi HPX. This is one of my choices of the sale, actually, in terms of intelligent guns that normal people should buy. Its estimate of 1,500 to 2, which is pretty reasonable, given that a new MX-8 is over 10 grand. The MX-8 base, as we know, was invented in 1968, or designed in 1968 for Olympic trap shooting, And the HPX is what makes this interesting. HPX was a concept, I believe, designed in conjunction with a guy called John Jeffries, who first in the 80s came up with the Diamond Gun series and then went on to do HPX stuff. He's one of the people who first went to Barazzi and suggested or pioneered the longer barrel concept that we all love today. You've got to think back in the 80s, we're thinking old Winchester Diamond Greys and Browning A1s, all of which were 26, 27, 28 inch, 29 and 30s were there, but pretty uncommon in sporting guns. 30 inch was more of a trap spec. And he went over and said, let's try sporterizing a gun from the factory. Over the years, we saw those barrels get longer and longer, and now this is a HPX 34 inch. It's just pretty reasonable value, I think, for what it is. The 34-inch concept comes in, obviously, from an extension of the 30-inch concept. The longer the gun is, the more control you have, and with a Barazzi, obviously, you can shed the weight a little. So if we have a little look, we'll have a look at what this barrel weighs in at. I wouldn't have thought a lot, if much at all. Yeah, 1600, which you get 32-inch barrels that are 1650. A lot of that is done by keeping it fixed chokes, you lose a little bit of weight there. Having it mid-ribless, which keeps the weight down. All you have is a bridge at the front and a joiner there. All in all, a pretty cool concept. The HPX is defined in a lot of ways by its ribs, and there's a few different ribs. This is a standard HPX rib. You have a polished ramp up to the top with a single tram line running down the middle. I've shot one of these guns actually, and I really did like it. It's designed high performance extreme for high bird shooting. That was kind of the concept, was sporting clays, and of later years the HPX was sold as a high bird gun. It gives you better visibility of the barrels, and that was done with this polished step up rib, so it got you over the action. And as I said, there's a few different variations out there. Is it the RSR? I can't remember the exact details, but a quick Google search will give you full information on the variances or variants of the HPX. This is an MX8. They do it in an MX12 or 2000. I believe they do a side plate version, they do engraved versions, they do high grade wood versions. The wood on this one is lovely, and the gun is a 2010 gun. I really like this. It's not my style, it's not what I'd choose personally, but it doesn't mean I don't appreciate that it's kind of messy and nice and completely unique in itself. Lots of colour variants. It's a pretty piece of wood, hand checkered of course. The plate at the back, the Barazzi plate, is dead and will need a replacement. The stock on this is 15¼ inches with just under a ½ inch pad, so this could be good for a bigger dude. Fit wise, it's not bad. A little bit straight, a little bit of right hand palm swell, a little bit high, but you know, you're not going to buy this gun and not feel the need to fit it. I wouldn't have thought at the price you could have it little bit of cast and I'd be there or thereabouts for me, or a custom stock and you're still in for a very good value thing. A detachable trigger group, that's cool. This is a Barazzi detachable trigger group, so for those who like detachable triggers, that's a great little addition. And you know, as much as I've said sometimes in the past they're kind of vaguely pointless, there is a lot of point. Firstly, ease of cleaning. Secondly, ease of security. When you travel, you take that out and this gun is redundant to anybody, so that's a nice touch. And it's cool. I always think that detachable trigger guns, well, because you can take the trigger out, means they actually have to finish the inside a little bit better. So most DT guns are just finished to a higher standard because you can go inside, and so they end up with a slightly better finish. Not necessarily where it counts, but where it doesn't count. So, I don't know, attention to detail is a big selling point. This is a standard Barazzi MX8 action. It's black, it's boring, there's a little bit of border engraving, a little bit of engraving around the hinges and on the top lever with a gold, non-adjustable trigger. Balance-wise, it's not actually bad. For a 34-inch gun, it sits about 3/4 inch in front of the hinge. Not bad. And the gun weighs in at 8.3 pounds. That's adequate. It's not bad. Like, you think 1,600 gram barrels, 34 inches, they are out there. You're not buying a 34-inch barrel gun not to have a little bit of front weight, and 8.3 pounds is nothing, really, for a gun of this spec. It's about where a clay gun needs to be. Again, personally, I'd probably add a little bit more in the back, replace the pad with a Pacmar or something a bit heavier, and just bring a touch more neutral, not fully neutral. I think you'd have a really nice machine there for sporting clays, high pheasants, all sorts. The biggest thing for me on this is, as I said, that price is incredibly attractive. You've got a Schnabel forend. I'm not a huge fan of the line on that, but it is small enough to get a bit of a hold of and just help you drive and push that gun. Cool, isn't it? A HPX. It's a bit of a lesser known Barazzi series. I like it. What do you think? Your next pick, Simon, 1850.
Yes, is a Branquiat Belgian live pigeon hammer gun.
Okay. You were in a Belgian mood, mate.
I am in a Belgian mood. I didn't mean to be in a Belgian mood. I didn't feel Belgian when I woke up this morning, but it turns out I picked a load of Belgian guns at the auction.
I think nice Belgian guns are not rare, but are, as we previously said, sort of blanketed by the quantity of meh that you see.
I mean,
When you get 3 bangers in one auction, why not share them,
They
right?
produced an awful lot of guns for the mass market. This is not one of those.
Right.
This is a specialist tool for competition seen in the 1900s, the end of the live pigeon shooting era in France and Belgium, and it's just a really nicely made gun with lovely touches to it. Big, deep, heavy
It is a beast, isn't it?
Designed for big loads at box birds.
Right. 3-inch?
Let's just have a look at the proof marks and find out. I'll tuck the forend in the pocket so we don't drop it. We'll put it down.
70mm.
70mm, 2 3/4 inch chamber, yeah.
Which is perfect. There's no real drama. It's just such a big lump of an action, one would have presumed.
It is English-made barrels, it appears. It's a monstrous gun, and you could quite happily shoot that today. Let me just give you the forend as well.
Oh, full gear. It feels wonderful.
Yeah.
I presume it's up at 7 3/4 pounds, that kind of ballpark, or is it?
Yeah, it's somewhere around there, yeah. It's got heft, hasn't it? I mean, you just feel like this is going to look after you all the way through a competition. I mean, I look at these guns with a view to shooting the current competitions at, in English Open, British Open, British Side-by-Side Championships. We're now, Holts Auctioneers, are sponsoring a side-by-side category in the World Championships.
That's cool.
And we're very grateful to the CPSA for letting us do that. We've given a generous prize of £1,000 voucher to spend with us as first prize, and vouchers down to third as well. So, and a really good sized trophy. So it's something we're trying to grow, the appreciation of historic competition guns for the modern era. That is one that would suit the bill.
I presume plenty of, lots of choke.
Yeah, plenty of choke.
Yes, half and full or something.
So you can do what you like with that. You could teague it, you could
moves.
take it out to 3/8. Personally, I've got out to 3/8 and 3/8 in both barrels for my competition gun.
Yeah,
Don't need any more than that.
I shot the Hodnet Challenge with some 70-yarders and I broke a solid 90-yard target with a 3/8 choke.
Yeah.
It's very, very capable.
Very capable. People at a very high level do go tighter than that, but actually, unless you're on it at the closer
many
stuff,
don't as well.
Many don't. This is true. I mean, you get, and there's, I think, a little bit of gamesmanship there of people saying they shoot tighter than they actually do. But there we go. Each to their own. Be comfortable with what you're shooting. I'm quite happy with 3/8 in both.
This is wonderful. This is
A belter.
up there with my favourite guns of the sale, actually, surprisingly.
Just £1,500 to £2,000.
You pick it up and you feel like you're going to do God's work.
It's going to look after you, that one. She's going to make sure you get home.
Just
It's great, isn't it?
every
It's got
piece.
every attribute you want.
And, it is a lump,
Elegant.
but it's
for a lump.
insanely elegant for
it
what
is.
could be ugly. We've
All
seen
of that.
so many Spanish versions of similar, right? Big fat actions, and they're pig ugly. This,
Yes, that is not,
the
because
lines,
it's
the
rounded
clips,
properly.
and you have these beautiful lines on here that hide the curves. It's curvy girl.
It's shaped properly.
From a maker I'm completely unaware of.
Yeah, me
Even
too,
better,
until this turned
right?
up.
I think
Articulated front trigger.
That's
a really great gun
deal
for
as
not
well,
a
isn't
huge
it?
outlay.
Sensible stock dimensions, that's a winner.
Yeah.
From 1910.
Yep.
Winner. Moving up in price and quality a touch, we have a David Mackay Brown in lot 1671 for quite a lot of money.
It is, yeah. It's not a cheap gun, but that's a reflection.
But they're not cheap guns.
They're not cheap guns. No, they're not. You've got the desirable aspects here of Scottish gunmaking, which is you've got a trigger plate action, and it's the classic Dixon round action, Mackay Brown round action trigger plate, which, as we've discussed many times in the past, and I've bored on ad nauseam. But it does make a difference when you move the centre of gravity of a gun further back between the hands and you lower it over the whole action, then you improve the handling, just like you'd improve the handling on the suspension of a race-tuned car.
SL2.
Exactly the same deal.
Parati. That's the whole concept of Parati is
the
to
new
have the
Beretta.
weight and hang in the bottom. The SL2 even more so. Like,
Exactly.
everything is designed to get it low, and I'd be interested to do some tests on that because we can feel it. I do wonder what the actual difference is. Why a top heavy gun doesn't handle quite so nicely, other than just shooter perception.
It comes down to good gun making, and some of those secrets are not broadcast.
Yeah.
They are kept close hold for a reason, because not everybody should have that knowledge and be able to just whack it into anything, because there's more to it than just where you strategically place the weight. It's about the choice of wood, it's about the barrel making, it's about everything coming together and locking up properly.
By the way, before we talk about
Yes, sorry.
this is one of the over-unders that looks best from the top and bottom. I do think the profile of all the metalwork and wood is just spectacular.
It's sleek and beautifully rounded, and there is something pleasing about those lines that just makes your brainwaves tune in to the fact that it looks elegant. And it does. Yeah, right. And this is the over and under version of that classic round action shape. And because it's an over and under, and because it's a 20 bore, and because it's a trigger plate, rounded body, it makes it more desirable to the game shooting market. People are looking for these guns, which is why it is 26 to 28,000 as an estimate.
Which is not a small amount of money, but brand new one of these is double that plus a very long wait, I presume, still?
It is a bit of a wait, yeah.
Yeah, am I right in saying that it's under new ownership as well? So
It
this
is,
is like
yeah.
an original, if you like.
Yeah, I mean, the new owners are changing the design to improve on some of the imperfections. It's like anything, when it is your baby and you tend to stick with the design you have, and it takes a fresh pair of eyes to... They do it, yeah, they do it. So the fins that are underneath the fore end have been redesigned on the new ones, and that's one of the changes that has been made.
They are cute how they lay over the top, aren't they, though? It's the actual aesthetic design of this is nice.
Yeah, and one of the new designs that they've done is, instead of those being two pieces of metal, they're now one piece of metal that goes all the way down.
That sounds really hard
Makes
to make.
it stronger, and it's difficult to do, but there's a reason they've done it that way. Anyway, this is one of the original designs from David Mackay-Brown, who has now retired and sold to new owners. So, and it's beautiful in its own right because of those lines, because of that sleek top lever, that elegant top strap.
It is. It's just a pretty thing.
They're pleasing.
Right? It doesn't really require much more than that. It's pretty looking just by its design. If it was unengraved, it would be a good looking thing.
Yeah, it would.
Have you shot one?
I haven't shot the 20 bore, no. I have shot 12, and they're beautifully handling guns. This one is not without its small issues. There's a small dent in the first section of the top rib here. Somebody's clearly smacked it into a crossbar and had it raised a bit, but not enough.
Simple enough.
And it can come out with the right tool and the right expertise. So yeah, things can be addressed. I love a buffalo horn plate on the end of a Scottish gun particularly, and my Dixon hammer gun has got a buffalo horn plate by the makers as well, just to extend it to my length, because we're taller and we're wearing Gore-Tex, not wool, so we need extra length in our stocks. But this one doesn't quite have the right shape for me. I would prefer to see a little bit more bump at the heel, but that's just me. Yeah. It may be specifically requested, but it does tend to be a little bit more of a modern gun-making fad to have less shape and more of a flat end. Personally, I think it's a mistake for most people.
Well, I think that
most men, let's put it that way,
comes from soft pads, right?
Yeah.
Soft pads don't want toes and catchy bits because most aren't, whatever, and that then has bled into other stuff. When you have a hard pad, and my Marukio, I've got a hard buffalo horn heel plate, completely sculpted because it locks it in much nicely.
Yeah, but if you look at the old guns, if you look at the Manton's muzzle loaders of the old days, when they first perfected gun stock design, they have a lovely shape to them which sits so, and there's a reason they sit so well in the shoulder, and a lot of our clients comment on this. Why guns don't sit quite so well in the shoulder as when you pick up one of those old muzzle loaders, it's because the shape is different these days. And there may be reasons that people are marketing shapes like this, but for me, the older shape with a little bit more defined curve does matter. Yeah, that can be replaced. Right. So it's not a deal breaker on this one because it can be changed.
You think like over the last 10 years, grip design has become like this big popular thing, right?
Yeah.
And we're starting to understand grip design in the last 15 years better than we ever have.
Yeah.
Maybe. Or at least relearning about grip design for the modern era. I reckon there will come a point, and you see a lot of the trap boys having custom pads, moving up certain things, and then trying 6 or 7 pads to get that perfect feel. There will come a point that we start finishing guns in something hard again to end up with the perfect fit in the shoulder.
Yeah, I think it's an option that if we tried hard enough, we could achieve. Pitch matters when it comes to gun stocks.
With 3D printing, for sure, right? You go, right, this is my shoulder. I would like a soft rubber pad, but I would quite like it to have a slight lump at the bottom because I've got a hole there, or so on and so forth. And, there might be an extra point or two there.
Exactly.
You never know.
From my perspective, maybe it's because the way my shoulder works, and I have a peculiar collarbone because I have a healed break from a very long time ago, which makes my collarbone go up like that, which conversely gives me an extra deep pocket there, but I like a shaped pad to go in there and lock in.
Yeah.
That's just the way I'm built. So...
Yeah,
it could be personal preference,
it's,
but I
it's
think
gun specific. I think a small sleek gun like this would be nice to have a bit more shape. A big heavy gun that you're just putting against your body and just kind of holds itself in its existence might be a different thing.
It depends on your style of shooting as well.
Yeah,
so
right.
if you're used to throwing it up, which I don't always recommend, a nice smooth gun mount is more controlled, is always best. Maybe the flatter pad and the flatter shape suits some, but for me, it's certainly the game shooting pupils that I have. I think sometimes they could benefit from a little bit more certainty when it comes to their gun mount.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree, but it is interesting, as you said, to see how we've gone from concave to convex shapes on stocks, pretty much in entirety.
Yeah. Anyway, we're moving off the gun.
Yeah, but it is an interesting discussion.
It is,
right?
yeah.
And certainly worth bearing in mind, and some of the guns I've looked at so far have real interesting stock shapes.
Yeah.
And the problem is the interesting thing about buying a gun at this kind of level, or any of the guns we've looked at, is pretty much everyone will have a custom stock, right?
Yeah.
And there are some guns here that don't, a few Brownings and a few Berettas and that's literally it. There's a few Marukus for standard stock specs, but everything else is going to be custom. And I guess you guys can provide stock measurements to a certain extent.
Yes, we can. We can give an indication.
Drop and cast.
Exactly. And a lot of our American clients ask for that in a condition report, and we can do that.
Because you might actually want to be able to hit something with the gun.
Well, this is true. Most things can be altered. Not everything, but most things can be altered.
Yeah, right. And custom stocking, maybe not for this. This is a little bit out there. But
more
for
tricky.
many guns, is easier and more accessible than ever.
Yeah.
One of a pair, but only one of a pair, right?
Yeah, we only have the number 2. So number 1 is out there somewhere. But that often happens when, the original owner leaves a pair of guns to 2 sons. Sometimes one goes one way, one goes the other.
My final question, mate. Life, not safe. Is that a Mackay Brown thing?
I hadn't noticed that. How interesting. How interesting. It actually has the word life in gold where the safe would normally be.
If only you had another pair to double check whether that's standard.
We do.
What a coincidence.
Wow.
These are a little bit nicer,
Have you pushed the safety catch forward and found what's underneath it? Skull and crossbones. Death.
Yeah, this is safe.
This is
has nothing.
This is a special commission. Life, skull and crossbones equals death.
That's quite cool, isn't it? I mean, to be fair, if it was me, it would be life and life.
Light it up, pedal to the metal. We're gonna take it to a whole nother level tonight.
This one is particularly beautiful. It's an Abbiatico and Salvinelli 28 gauge. It's lot 1666. It is 8 to 10 grand, and I just can't help but love it. As you guys know, we've looked at some Abbiatico and Salvinellis. It's a smaller Italian maker, founded in 1967. They've made plenty of guns over the years, and well, there's a couple more in this auction we're gonna be looking at. I can't help but enjoy each of their guns. They are, some people would say they are style over substance, and they're not potentially the hardest built of guns, but they're not built for hard work. You're not buying one of these to take it and abuse it. It's not a clay machine. These are designed to be beautiful works of art that are also usable. And this one is no different. It's a maker that makes less than 100 guns a year, and very few of those are in 28 gauge. Let's come in close and have a proper look. The engraving on this gun is the first thing you see. It's done by Chiara Z, who I tried to find a little bit more on, but there's just a few more references to Abbiatico and Salvinelli. I love the style of the work. That deep carved out background gives it huge depth, great contrast against this large bold scroll. It's modern, it's cool, it is its own style. I love the little circles cut out of the acanthus. It just Abbiaticos are always good looking guns, for sure. There's a Poseidon on the wall over there that I thought was quite good. Fully engraved trigger tang with grip cap. More importantly, that then bleeds on to the forend, which has extended forend iron. I think if you just put it all together, it is aesthetically stunning. Engraving work like this is not cheap, nor quick, nor easy, or quickly learned, more importantly. Next interesting thing is this. If we drop the top lever, I mean, firstly, have a look at the carving around these fences and how, more importantly, it bleeds up to those barrels. I just can't help but look at that and go, that is refinement. There's 28 gauge chambers coming and rounding itself into the detonation. They're deep carved fences on the back there. I love the look of that. I think that's really, really stylish. Personally, you have a touch of engraving on the top rib before it goes to just a machine finish. Abbiatico and Salvinelli on the barrel, and Abbiatico and Salvinelli in gold. We have hand checkering on there, and oh yeah, we're talking about mechanically interesting stuff. Look at that. Another detachable trigger. Comes out with, you know, a little bit more class and apparatzy one I struggle to get out and in. I said before that these aren't the toughest of guns, and I guess what I meant by that is they don't take to abuse very well, but well serviced and well looked after, one of these guns will look after you for a very long time. Where it's masked in when we drop this back in, it disappears in there with that deep cut engraving. The scaling on this is stunning, and other than that, let's move on to slightly more practical stuff. So the practical stuff, made in 2008, it's 7 to 9K, 30-inch barrels choked at 1/4 and 3/4 with 70mm chambers, blued finish, monoblock construction. Stock 15 inches, a figured walnut. It's definitely a unique piece of wood. Quiet and yet sophisticated. It's like wine tasting notes wood, isn't it? The line of the whole thing is, I think, exquisite. Abbiatico never make a mess of that. And my final treat, steel heel and toe plates on the stock. That is one of the biggest things about this gun that's helped it to me. If I had my choice when it came to game guns, that's what I'd put on the back of them. Of my own one day. Not many makers even offer it. Who's this for? Well, that's a good question. I would say it's for anyone who likes guns. Nice, fine guns and pretty guns. It's definitely there. In reality, this is a walked up gun, an upland gun. It's for, you know, chasing stuff. It's only £6, £8, £6.10, which is not super light, but neither is it super heavy. Driven grouse gun, driven partridge gun, just, you know, the 28 gauge is more capable than it's ever been, right? There are some amazing lead loads, there are some incredible non-toxic loads coming to the market in terms of tungsten and bismuth, and we're seeing some great developments in that from both the States and Italy. And, you know, as time goes on and we sort ourselves out in England in terms of our non-plastic wadding, we'll see some great non-toxic 28 gauges as well, although there are already some great bismuth options out there if you know, have a wallop deep enough to go and shoot them, although in reality, given that a pheasant is £60, what's spending a couple of extra quid on cartridges to be able to shoot a fine, nice gun? I don't know, there's an argument to be had in the comments, I'm sure. What do you think to this? It's definitely stylish. I could get behind it. Nice, big grip, relatively intelligent dimensions. You best have a 15-inch stock size for you if you're buying this gun, because it would be a crime to change those heel and toe plates. Our next selection is lot 1550. This is a bit of a rare beast, but also a bit of a common beast. This is a Muntaculus AYA number 2, built in 1999 for 2 to 3 grand. And there's a whole host of reasons to like this. First, the price. Totally fair at 2 to 3 grand. The AYA is considered certainly the most well-known, if not the most popular gun maker out of Spain. They've made many bajillions of guns, and so we should be fairly aware of their existence. And the quality, although it has changed over the years, has always been to a standard that is robust. And 1999 is considered, I mean, the late 90s is considered one of the better periods, right? Fewer CNCs, still have all the old masters from the 70s working there. At the end of its peak, for sure, definitely towards the tail end, but the talent and the quality is still there. The price is now at a level which they can still invest time. So there's no shortcutting like there would have been sort of 10, 15 years before, where there was a little more disparity between income, earnings, price internationally, etc. This is a good thing. Most of you will be aware of the number 2. We've got tight scroll that's put in usually with a roller and then gone over with by hand to maintain uniformity and also make a very pretty gun at a very affordable price. We have a hand finished stock to 14 3/4 inches, finished in wood with an unengraved oval. It's in the box with its wax paper and its little 28-inch barrels. I've got a AOA number 4, which I have enjoyed shooting a number of times. They are 3-inch chambered, 76mm or 76.2mm, meaning you can put every 410 load available through these, or at least in the lead variety. We've got 1/4 and 3/4 choking, which is totally acceptable, and the serial number here will dictate that it's made in 1999. I think we can all say this gun is as new. Big question of who it's for. Well, I guess it's for people who want a fun gun. This is not the most intelligent main shooter. Right? 410 has its serious limitations, as we all know. It's why 28 gauge is so popular, because you can still take it and do lots with it. 410 is a limitation, but a lot of people will enjoy that. I walked up Woodcock a couple of seasons ago with my AOA, with Paul Childley and his AOA number 4, and we had a wonderful time. And in those woods, inside of 30 yards, it's a super capable gun. It weighs 5 pounds 10. The condition aesthetically is as new. There's a few marks on the stock, sort of storage or whatever marks. Those would steam out if you really wanted, if that bothered you. But a pretty much as new gun, let's call it the new price of one of these. If you could get one built, it's gonna be like 16 grand, somewhere between 12 and 16 grand. If you go to some of the makers, you might find a Spanish new 410 for under 12, but I doubt it. I think that's spectacular value and a really rare find. I do wonder what its history is, but hey, the beauty of an auction is you never know. But you can make the story up, and that's part of the fun, guys. On to the next one. Simon, your second pick of the sale is a pair of guns. Pretty unlike you to pick a pair of guns.
It is, but this is a particularly interesting pair of guns for the style that they are, because this is probably my favourite style of engraving, which is the bold acanthus, which you don't often see. You see them on blanches occasionally. You do see them on certain London makers who employed
like abstract acanthus as well, which is really nice.
Almost Art Deco in feel, but it's around the same time, and it's often called the Kell style of engraving. So Henry Kell was his proper name, but he was always known as Harry, was one of the most influential gun engravers of all time. He did work for numerous members of the London trade and elsewhere. This is Wilkinson of Pall Mall, who are themselves interesting and ended up as Wilkinson Sword, makers of the Fairbairn Sykes fighting knife, amongst other things.
Cheap razors nowadays.
And cheap razors these days, yes. But they were gun makers who descended from Henry Knock.
Super cool story, that one.
It is, yeah. So, and ended up as Wilkinson's Sword, but these were Wilkinson Limited. Back to Harry Kell. Lots of guns are described as in the style of Kell, because he trained a huge number of engravers. He supervised access to his pattern book and allowed people to go and use some of these patterns that he developed, and trained a lot of them to do it. So we can't say for sure, but it is the standout engraving in gun making and on guns, I think. And this is the scroll version. He also developed a more realistic game scene style of engraving as well. So we can't say for sure this is Harry Kell, but this is in the Kell style, and it remains just outstandingly beautiful to look at. The way those lines flow, and I bang on about this a lot as well, but the way they flow up into the detonators there and around the fence, it just looks...
There's a fluidity to this
so
that
elegant.
is particularly nice, right? There's also a lot going on.
Engraving is a very personal
Different
thing.
as well, more importantly.
Some people like bold, deep engraving with darkened backgrounds to make the higher areas stand out even more. Some like heavy carving. Some like tight rows and scrolls. Some like the Boss House style. Some like the Purdy House style. For me, this is the most beautiful. So, I mean, this is artwork in metal. It really is, for me. They're not a perfect pair of guns. This is actually a composed pair, not a true pair.
Okay.
So...
Oh, yeah, there's no number on this one. That's 2, and this is nothing. So
yeah, so
that's cool.
There are differences between true pairs of guns, composed pairs, and matched pairs, and lots of people get this wrong. A true pair of guns is a pair commissioned by the same payer of the bill to be built at the same time by the same craftsman. A matched pair, which actually is what this is, rather
So he would
than
have
a composed
ordered this
pair.
one first, hence there's no numbering on it,
Yeah.
and then he would have ordered number 2 and had the 2 put
He would have
onto
gone
it.
back several years later and gone, make me a gun to match this one. That is a matched pair of guns. A composed pair of guns is 2 that are brought together to look similar, maybe by the same maker, but were never built to be the
Lots of
same.
people do it right. James Davis Cook has a pair of 28 gauge Beretta Silver Pigeons. He's just bought one, then bought another one. Had the stocks both fitted up the same, and
That is a composed pair.
composed.
Yeah, and even I made the
that's
mistake, because I
okay.
think I made the mistake at the beginning of introducing the idea of differences between pairs, of saying this is a composed pair. It's not. It's a matched pair.
Yeah.
So, my error.
So matched
But-
by factory rather than matched by bloke.
Yeah, and the chances are the guys at the factory at the same time who made that one as well.
Yeah, we got 55166 and 55210. I don't know how many guns Wilkinson made, but I can't imagine that those were super far apart in time
Probably the
period.
same craftsman working on both.
More than likely.
But then, again, as I say, not perfect, because one is down to 19th thou in the wall. And wall thickness, everybody gets a little bit jumpy about wall thickness these days. The second-hand gun market only started paying attention to wall thicknesses in the 1970s, when a particular auction house in London decided to publish the thickness of the walls. And you do have to be cautious, but you don't have to be terrified. The thing about thin-walled guns is that they are more susceptible to dents. They are easier to dent, and it's harder to knock a dent out of a thin wall, and you thin it further by doing so. So
They also handle quite lively, which is not of the flavour of the century.
But I mean, if you're slinging your gun around so much, then there's a special rung in hell for you, quite frankly, when you've got stuff this beautiful and you're just mistreating it like that. So just be careful with it.
I feel like I'm getting told off today, subtly. It's not aimed at me, but I'm getting serious deflection.
I'm sorry, it's not me aiming at you. It's just, please don't mistreat them. Just look after them and they'll look after you.
Right, but I'm also of the school of thought, personally, that you still have to go and enjoy it, right?
Oh, yeah,
You don't
absolutely. You don't want to be precious about it, but you just have to be
pussyfooted about it. But you do have to be a little bit more careful, right?
Exactly,
That's cool.
you do. And you have to bear in mind that some ultra-lightweight guns left the factory at 18th thou in the wall.
Which is really cool.
They were designed to have very lightweight barrels to be very fast handling.
And
So
you also buy cartridges that are appropriate for it a little bit.
exactly, you don't have to shoot anti-aircraft shells on stuff at the edge of space, as I've said before. You can shoot normal game shooting loads at normally driven game.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. You're not going to put 34-gram loads through this thing. And if you do, you're going to get a headache, and you probably deserve it.
This is where most people buy a 28 gauge, 20 gauge Simon, or 410. So
You
just to
could, but there's
bring us back
nothing
to a
wrong
previous
with
point.
shooting a light load through a 12-bore.
No. It's technically the same challenge, right? I think there is some enjoyment to feeling righteous with a sub gauge, because one presumes with the 12 gauge rule on level playing field, but technically you are not, right?
No.
A little more choke, a little less lead,
Exactly.
and you are into a slightly different gravy, which is cool.
The self-righteousness of the sub-gauge user, that's a topic, isn't it?
I mean, I am a self-righteous sub gauge user, but I'm also a self-righteous 12 gauge user. It just depends on the day of the week.
Everyone could say I'm a self-righteous side-by-side user. So
Yeah, it depends on the day of the week, right?
Exactly.
I mean, literally, I'd say a 28 gauge over and under user and a side-by-side user probably are just as righteous as each other and need to go to some, like, anonymity confession club.
Probably both need to walk off the high ground of morality.
Right.
And there's a film of that, us walking down a hill in Wales.
Yeah, it's trying to...
Me using a side-by-side and you using a 28.
Yeah, that will
So
break
that's not
most
where that
people's
presses.
morality, right?
Well, quite.
And we both changed guns, we both had a good time.
We did. Yes, exactly.
The bottom line is, I think...
have fun with what you're using, look after it, and it'll look after you.
Yeah, well,
there we are.
There's definitely some entertaining value there of people sitting in their little camp thinking that's the only way you can enjoy the sport, regardless of which bizarre niche you're in. Crikey, you even like 16 gauges, but if we're going to be about bizarre niches, there's people who say that's the best, and you go, I think there's a more holistic view here to be had of everything's the best.
The best gun is the one you have in your hand.
And 100%. The most enjoyable one's the one you can afford, so...
Exactly.
All right, big question is, how much is this pair?
So this pair is estimated at £5,000 to £7,000.
It's not terrible, but
It's not.
Wilkinson's not a big name, right?
It's not a big name, but look at them. Look at them. You can see, I mean, the light is catching them here just to make this shine like a jewel.
There is money to be saved through a matched pair. If this was a true pair, one would presume another couple of grand, and if it was composed pair, maybe a grand less.
Perhaps, but these are so close together, I don't think it would alter the price that much, to be honest with you, to have it actually as a true pair. They are so closely aligned, as I say, as we discussed, probably built by the same craftsman, just a few years apart. So it doesn't alter the price that much, or the estimate that much. I mean, the price at auction is always what two people are willing to pay. So we will find out on July the 8th, a little bit after 3 o'clock.
What's really interesting, I think the number 2 gun is actually slightly better in places.
Okay.
If we're going to be like super picky about it, it's definitely a little more refined, which is quite interesting, right?
But I guess these guys were like, I got to match it, but craftsmen are competitive.
Yes.
And they're probably like,
But I want to just better it.
Bob engraved that one. Screwed Bob.
Yeah. But these are subtle, minute differences. There's a pair of guns in here with very large differences in the engraving, and they were made as a pair, so...
Another pair of Scottish guns.
Another pair of Scottish guns.
A pretty rare set.
Well, yeah, they're unusual, uncommon. Horton of Glasgow, and typically being Scottish, they're doing things that other gun makers didn't. Certainly not in the English gun trade. You've got interesting unengraved flute that goes up the fence. You've got a very round disc to the head of the top lever.
Yeah.
They're an 1891 patent, and you've got an intercepting sear. Interesting scroll back. The actual bulge in that scroll is much lower. It's not symmetrical. So it's just a different style of gun making, which the Scottish gun makers specialised in being different. These are not in the best of health. You've got one set of barrels here that's sleeved, and you've got one which is down to 15th thou in the wall, which is too skinny for anyone really. But a good quality pair of guns in their day, and you've effectively got one usable pair of barrels. And if you wanted to sleeve it, yes, it's an expensive job, but it could be done. Likely historic replacement stock on this one, because you can see the original with the worn checkering on that one.
They spent some money on one of the guns.
Yeah, Horton's trade label is probably the prettiest trade label in all of gun making.
A game-seen trade label.
It's beautiful.
Is that a later concept, do you think?
No, that was turn of the century, 1890s, turn of the century. He was using that. I know one friend of mine in the trade uses that at his business card now as well, with his name as opposed to Horton's name on it.
That's cool.
And it looks really cool. So just, something different, but a little bit of a cautionary tale of things to look out for when looking at a pair of guns in auction. Read all the way through the description, then read it again. Because we list all these issues.
One presumes that they are priced accordingly, right?
Yeah,
the case
it's
is
£1,500 for the pair.
for a pair of guns.
Yes.
And you got one good one for that.
Yeah.
So if you
Yeah.
look at it from that perspective,
Yeah.
get a nice case and one usable gun. And you can say you own a pair-ish. A true pair, even better.
There is an upside to a cheap pair, yeah. But just read through the description, and if you've got any questions, please ask.
That's lovely.
That's good, isn't it? And it's reflected in that wide disc at the top of that fronts the top lever. Just something unusual, not run of the mill, which is the things I like to talk about. Is the stuff that's not run of the mill.
J.M. McC.
Yeah, as is on the canvas outer, which most flat cases had. Not all, but most.
I do like that. I like this too. Everything about it is
inner
just
pad, to protect the guns.
shame about the guns.
Yeah.
Love the case.
Yeah, it can't look at everything as perfect and worthy of a huge price tag.
No,
It's
I think
not
that's
why
one
we're
of
here.
those things about auction, right? Is often we see and hear things that are not in the best of condition, but they're so obscenely rare or special that
You'll forgive it a few faults.
you have to, right?
And then try and find a bright side.
And then try and find a bright gunsmith.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is an increasing problem, is finding people who are able to do the job to the standard required these days. Because, the guys who can do it are not getting any younger, which is one of the reasons we need to support them, so that they bring on other people coming through, so that we don't lose the skills to keep these things going. They do take some keeping going. It's like vintage car restoration. They take some doing. It just isn't a modern car.
And if you are like if you're going to use one as your daily driver, you best own 12 guns.
Yeah.
So you've always got something
Because
that's
two of them are
working.
going to be in the workshop. It is a serious point that you need to support the people who can repair these things. If you looked at it as a purely economic exercise, you'd never throw any money at it. But it's not a purely economic exercise.
Yeah, we said in the past, if you're buying a gun to sell, it's a very different thing to buying a gun to enjoy it for
Absolutely.
life.
Yeah.
For your children to sell.
Yeah.
I think it's a really nice thing. You rarely see it. I love the shape of that scroll.
It's very different, and there's a little mirror to that inletting up here. That's not the easiest path, is it, to heading a stock? There's a lot happening there.
But just a testament to what Horton did back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Super cool.
Don't know why I picked them, but there we are.
Because they're cool.
Because they're cool, that's why.
Gun making periods and countries vary massively, right? You've got different countries have different periods of quality, and what it meant to have a gun from that country can change over time. This one here is a real good example of that.
It is, yeah. It's the second Belgian gun we have picked out, but it's not 100% Belgian. This is an interesting one because we've just had to dig deep here to find out a little bit more about it. On the surface, it's a really nice quality side-plated box lock 20 bore ejector, but it's done well. It's not just, you know, oh, we'll slap slide plates on it and call it quits. It's beautifully engraved, very finely proportioned. You've got lovely wide trigger blades that feel comfortable on the pad. It's a usable gun. You've got a really nice fine safety catch. You've got a beautiful little vacated middle line down there. It's lovely. That took work to do. But you've got Jan Visser, the gun maker from Belgium here, stamped on the face of the action, upside down.
J. Visser.
Yeah. But on the barrels, you have F.A. Visser de Venter.
Which is not in Belgium.
It's not, it's in Holland.
Over the border. But one would presume these guys were family, and a little bit of research dictates that J. Visser was a generalist gun maker, and F.A. Visser is a barrel maker.
Yeah, based in Holland. So you've got Belgian, Holland, probably cousins or brothers or similar family, same family. So it's just an interesting example of gun making that crosses borders in Europe in 1951.
So I did some research, and according to the internet, Dutch gun making, I mean, I don't know a lot about Dutch gun making. It doesn't,
No.
It's not like famous
No, it's not.
for guns. Apparently what gun making they had is all component based gun making.
Yeah.
They didn't really have a gun maker who did it all. It's component based, which is kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, but again, it's what we tend to ignore that happened in the UK is people have always, high-end gun makers that we know have always bought in barrels from high-end barrel makers based elsewhere.
Was our component-based gun making still a thing in the 50s, or did that die out a little earlier for us?
Well, part of the brand identity of some of these high-end gun makers we had in London was to bring it all under one house, in one factory. But it's always been part of UK gun making.
It still is now.
It's
Like,
part
they
of
still use
European
plenty
gun
of
making.
outworkers now,
Absolutely,
but I think it's just interesting that the parts are stamped with different names, because it's very un-British to do that, or in fact, un-many countries to do that. Most people go, I'm buying all these bits and it's mine, I'm putting my name on it.
Yeah.
I guess if it's your cousin, you go, yeah, mate, you can leave your barrels on there.
But it's also, so you could look at it another way, it's a mark of the pride of what they produced.
It's a good point. Many barrels that you find on many modern production guns will have a set of initials on, and even like back in the days of Webley's, barrel makers would put their initials on the short rib.
Yeah.
Like, it's an interesting concept, but I don't think we've ever seen one quite so obviously similar but different.
No, quite. And it took a little bit of digging to get this information out, but here it is.
So, yeah, on the face of it, what have we actually got here? It's got 1504, it's £800 to £1,200, which is, I guess, about where it should be. It's neither
it needs a
cheap
little bit
nor
of
expensive.
It needs a little bit of tidying up, if we're honest. It needs to have that stock refinish to bring the best out of it. That pad is not really
Dated indeed.
Not really what we would enjoy seeing every day. But you've got a hidden third bite here. You've got a nice strong action. You've got
70mm chambers.
no, it's not. It's 2.5 inch.
Okay,
actually. So we have to be slightly cautious there. It is 65.
But that also is kind of indicated in that it's just under £6, isn't it?
Yeah, it's built as a lightweight
Yeah.
walking gun. So
2.5 inch enjoyable stuff.
yeah, and it's not perfect down the tubes. You've got a few marks down there. It could do with a really good clean.
I would
which is
like
something
that.
I will do when we put the camera down.
I like this.
Yeah.
And I guess that's that. But that rib is cool. The whole thing is cool.
Yeah, but again, it's a classic case of don't just go on name.
Yeah, right.
You may never have heard of them. That's not necessarily a bad thing.
No, I think
Small output, high quality is a good thing. You don't need to go on
100%.
name.
Who'd have thunk?
Close is better than thunk.
Ooh, mate,
It does come up well.
I was going to say, that's really not bad, like, stock
Yeah,
specs
it comes
either.
up well.
As much I'm now hating the stock look and shape a little
Yeah,
bit
but-
less. Like, it's not bad.
it
feels
does.
good.
It's there for a reason. It's a very continental style shape, that stock.
Yeah.
It's just that beginning of a slight roach belly. It's not a roach belly, but you can just see that shape deepening.
Yes, you don't have a lot of
straightness to it. It's not. Everything about the stock is very rounded. It's an interesting thing. But for me, looking down that rib, tapered tramline rib.
Nice.
It's a very modern thing to have a tapered tramline rib and say it's the best thing since sliced bread. And I do like a tapered tramline rib. I'm a fan. You got one from 1951.
It's a good thing.
There is no new things, is there? Just
Just reinterpretations.
Reinterpretations. They're forgotten about for a while because people move on and they're brought back in with all the modern sauce that people are adding in. And
Like any fashion.
wild, isn't
Cyclical.
When are we going to start wearing ruffs again? You probably do at home, don't you?
No, funny enough, I don't. I'd probably catch my soup in it.
I guess there it is. It's not that exciting, but it's a maker not many people will have heard of. So I do like a side-plated box lock when done correctly.
Yeah.
And I know that side plates are fake and all these people will go blah, 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 but they're not fake. It's quite evidently done to make it prettier.
Yeah, that's the basic premise of engraving. You've just given yourself a bigger canvas to do it on.
Yeah, it'd be like saying, well, don't like that they engraved the true good God. Why would you not add some engraving on extra metal? It's prettier, like we all agree. What a cool user. I can imagine that going out to the States, actually, and finding its home,
Yeah, I can see that.
chasing them for some things in the north.
Something fast in thick cover.
Yeah, and it is. I love that.
Yeah, that's cool.
You have a lot of fun.
Nice gun.
I am excited to share this with you. Our anti-penultimate choice is 1317. £5,000 to £7,000 will get you a pair of Army FAMAS hammer guns. I have had the pleasure of seeing these in real life, not this particular pair, but singles before. I don't think I've ever seen a pair. One would presume they are pretty rare. These guns are 1974 built, which is pretty early in the FAMAS story, which starts in 1967. FAMAS, also known as Fratelli, Albiatico and Salvinelli. So we've looked at Albiatico and Salvinelli's already today. Now, this styling of these is particularly unique with these long sloping fences. The styling of these hammer guns is definitely of its day, and this pair is in 20 bore with 26 3/4 inch barrels with beaver tail forends. I'm going to clip one together because I want to have a play. They're very, very tidy and probably are more in the realms of a collectible piece than a usable piece, although they are very capable of being used. Oh, that goes together nice. We should be surprised. As one of their sort of flagship guns, they should be put together well. Before I put it together, actually, this is worthy of note. Look how thin the bar of that action is. Super, super sleek. Very interesting concept. And then when we clip it together and add the forend, you can see how it's got this little waist in the middle. The action also bellies up and rounds into the flat of that barrel. I just love the proportions of this gun. It's not classical. It's not even traditionally classed as classy, but it is a pretty looking thing, like the way that it wastes in and belts out into the forend there. That small bar of the action does mean that there's no room for ejector work, which means these guns are non-ejector. But you got a pair of them, so that is your loader's problem. And the stocks are small, but it does feel good. It clips together well, it closes nicely. The whole thing is in good, tidy order for the money. Usually this kind of pair would be set over, I'd say 10 to 15 grand is probably where it's at from a retail perspective. But let's be frank, when on earth are you going to see another pair of these? Collectible market for FAMAS hammer guns is pretty niche, right? It's not a classic British hammer gun. It is a modern era hammer gun. But what I love about it is it's done in a way that is at least a rethink of the classic styling. If we're going to pick one hole in them, it's that we've got a different colour of bluing on the lock plate there. The shape of the lock plate's kind of basic, but it does go with the lines of the gun. And different bluing on the flat, different bluing on the side. Then you look at the other one, we've got a more electric blue on the lock plate. It's minor and is probably intentional. But if we're going to pick one hole, which we're allowed to do. Otherwise, I'd just be sitting here going, how cool these are. You know, from a collectible perspective, they've got everything. Firstly, it's a matched pair of 20-bore hammer guns. That's a pretty interesting thing. Mechanically, they are interesting. Artistically, I think we can all agree that the shape of the action from the top and the side is pretty special. They've got single triggers. They are a proper, usable set of guns, if not a little short in the barrels for some. But I think what we've actually seen over the last few years certainly looking at the results of the sale, as well as talking to people in the trade, is people are understanding that you don't need a 32-inch and 30-inch barrel for everything, and shorter barrels are slowly coming back in, or at least those who should be using them are using them, which is really nice. I think these are super cool. I would love to know what you think before we move on to the next one, and give them a rating out of 10 down in the comments. It will be interesting to get a consensus whether I am in the weird niche of people who think these look good. Let's find out. So when I saw this on the shelf, I immediately thought, that's a Merkel. And then I picked it up and I turned it sideways and I said, no, it's not. That's too good looking to be a Merkel. And then I moved on to looking at the top, which says Fratelli Gamba Gardoni Val Trumpia Original Bockler. And I thought, I like gambas. I've only really ever been exposed to the over and under. And then I went full geek, looked at the catalogue, did my research, and now I'm presenting this to you. This is lot 1422, a Fratelli Gamba model 580 single trigger ejector side lock side by side shotgun. It's valued at 8 to 1200. It's not ridiculous at that, I don't think, and I think the build quality is pretty incredible. So we're going to have a little look over it and, well, share some cool information about a relatively cool gun. Let's do a little bit about the maker to start with. Fratelli Gamba, as we've seen, I bought one from Holts a couple of years ago, and over and under, was founded in 1946 and continued until 88, early 89, making a complete range of guns from start to finish. I think they've made box locks, side locks, over and unders, detachable trigger plate, over and unders, the works. Pretty much any Italian looking gun they've had a hand in. The company was founded off of artisan skills and mid-level industry, meaning they were never a big company, but you know, they're bigger than the likes of Piotti, for example, making a few hundred guns a year, not double digits. Their over and unders are of a generally accepted great quality, and I've owned a few over the years, and I really do think they punch well above their weight quality-wise. It's a maker that not many people pay attention to, which is a good thing price-wise. Their quality is up there with the best of its era, I feel, and they're all hand-regulated to a standard which just feels better than many guns of the era. You're going to have to spend a little bit more to get a better gun than a Fratelli Gamba. This is my first exposure to one of their side-by-sides in person, and I quite like it. Important things is that spare parts are still available, if a little difficult to get. They're not that unreliable, so spare parts aren't going to be that necessary. The action designs, certainly on the over and unders, aren't hugely complicated, and so actually repairs without spare parts are possible. This model 580 was made in 1974. It is a side lock shotgun with side-by-side barrels. The barrels are 27.5 inches long with a raised tapered rib. I quite like the rib, nothing not to like about it. Hand filed, nice and simple for those of us who shoot majority over and under. Having a raised rib on a side-by-side it makes it a much easier transition for those first few shots. I also quite like the look of it. Certainly with that beaver tail forend, the raised rib does lend itself to being more of a over and under feel. You've got something to get a hold of, certainly when it gets hot, and you've got a nice simple sighting plane to be able to see down. They're sort of pigeon gunny hallmarks, but also for shooting walked up birds, having that as a simple sighting plane, going away bird, bang. I like it. The beaver tail forend, it's not the most British of looks, but from a practicality perspective, I am a fan. As numbers go, we've got an overall weight of 6 pounds 15, chokes of 1/4 and 3/4, or IC and iMod, a 14-inch stock with an inch-long ventilated pad. Drop-wise, it's got some, it's not actually listed in the book, but I'd say it was just over 1.5 and 2.5, just from general feel. The engraving is done by Incisione Nolli. I really like it. It's not super exciting, it's just simple, repetitive scroll. There's something to be said for it, right? You get it on Brownings do something similar, Merkels do something similar, and one of the Spanish gun makers does something similar. And I like it. It's just a simple way of covering a gun, but also repetitive patterns are the most unforgiving if you mess them up. I think for the money, a single trigger side by side, it's solid. 70mm chambers, it's solid. The choking is good. Maybe have that 3/4 knocked out to another quarter, and you've got a gun that will take steel happily. Made to a great standard. Wasn't built to compete for a collector's market. Was built for hunters and clay shooters, and that's kind of what the Gamba brand is all about. Oh, your last pick, mate. I guess I probably would have done this if you didn't do it.
I've just spotted it. I think I was dimly aware of it, but sometimes you only get to see everything in the catalogue when you actually come into the room. Even if you work here, you don't get
with as many
everything.
guns as there are. I always spend my time looking at the Holts website, going through the lot, seeing what's new, seeing what's exciting, and it gives you a bit of a flavour. But every single time, without fail, I walk in and go, "Oh, that's cool." Didn't even see it.
No.
Scroll past it.
You do that because in the combined sealed bid and live auction sales, this time we got 5,302 lots. So you can go gun blind, and it is part of the job is to narrow down the parameters of what you're looking at. We can help you with that if you send us some idea of what you want, barrel length, caliber, vague end use, but also your budget as well. Let us know where you want to be roughly, and we can tailor things accordingly.
It's not going to be particularly cheap, this lot.
No, because these are popular. So this is a 28-bore box lock ejector by Charles Osborne.
Great maker of small bores.
Yeah, and it's got a long stock on it. 15-inch stock
with a very nicely done horn pad with a geometry that might even make you happy.
I could shoot that no problem. It's a lovely little gun.
She's very tidy as well.
Yeah. Reproofed in 2001. Yeah. Tight, tidy, good original
little
gun.
Bit of refinishing, but not anything crazy.
Nothing that's going to offend. But then it's
very tasteful.
Made in 1925, so it's of some vintage.
I mean, most of my guns after 2 years look like they need refinishing. So I'd say this was doing really well. It's very
Sweet
up and together.
And will be increasingly popular with those who like their game wild and after 5 miles of walking. It is in a case, £1,500 to £2,000 is the estimate. It's a reflection of just how popular these are in the modern market.
That's not as bad as I thought it would be.
No, and it'll probably reach the top end.
But if you want a good quality small bore,
in
28, that's actually nice, not shagged or made for a child.
Yep, there you are. No, I mean, if that was in 12, it would be very middle of the road.
Yeah, 400 to 600.
Yeah. But it's not. It's in 28 bore, and there aren't that many of them around.
Simon, thank you very much as always.
That's a pleasure.
For your
as
knowledge,
always.
time, and subtle digs at me all day.
I am going to turn up wearing a ruff next time, you know that.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it. And I'm glad that you finished on a 28 bore just to prove that you do have some taste.
Absolutely. No hard feelings towards the small bore hunting community. No, I like them. I just, there are other calibers to shoot as well.
Yes, like many things in life, one can be put off by the rhetoric of owners.
Yeah.
And I think that is maybe the only downside. But I think 28s are cool, so they must be cool.
They must be.
Right, till the sealed bid.
Yes, a couple of weeks' time.
Thank you for watching TGS Outdoors. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. The channel would not be possible without the support of our amazing sponsors who keep videos coming to you week after week. If you really enjoy the channel and want to support it yourself, please consider becoming a member. Channel members get a bit of extra content. Today we're going to be talking about good shooting advice. But mostly, you just keep us going, and we love the support. There's a great community goes on behind the scenes. Take care, guys. Goodbye, and we'll see you on the next one.
Are we only half alive? Embers drifting in the night, looking, wandering all the time. We seek a kingdom. Long have we been on the road, but we don't face the